thank you all for joining us as we introduce QuickBooks CRM. I'm very excited about this 1-hour presentation. Before we get into the actual presentation or the demonstration, let's go over a couple housekeeping items. We do have a guest presenter. His name is Val Bonchabani. He's a pretty good friend of mine for Methods Integration. At the end of our presentation today, we are going to have a few minutes to go over your questions and answers. And when the webinar is complete, we will post the webinar online. I want to talk to you a little bit about me. I'm a certified method account manager and an advanced certified pro advisor. And as most of you know, I offer a wide range of consulting, training, and customization of both QuickBooks and QuickBooks CRM. And I've been talking about QuickBooks CRM with a lot of you guys for a few months now. And I think we are in a pretty good position as far as experience to help any of our clients or potential clients with QuickBooks CRM, because we use it in-house and we use it with our clients, both QuickBooks and the QuickBooks CRM exclusively. So as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, we do have a demo going on today, and it's going to be done by Val Bonchabani. And Val, when you're ready, I'll let you take over.
Okay, thanks, Jamel. As Jamel mentioned, my name is Val Bonchabani. I go by Val for short, and I work for Method CRM. And I have the pleasure of presenting this solution to everyone here on this webinar today. Just a bit of a background, as Jamel said, him and I have had the pleasure of meeting. I mean, we remain very close, acquaintances and colleagues from the professional level. And what I'm going to be demonstrating for everyone here today is a solution that integrates with QuickBooks. So we have a group here that is using QuickBooks or looking to use QuickBooks. And let's face it, I mean, there's certain features that are really great in QuickBooks. It does a fabulous job, but there's always areas for improvements. There's always areas for features that are missing in QuickBooks that we would love to have. And that's where Method CRM falls into place. So before we talk about this CRM, we need to explain what it is. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Okay, so it's really giving you a tool, a mechanism and a solution to effectively track and manage your customers and your relation with your customers, and it can also be used for vendors and leads and any of their contacts. So a CRM, and we're going to take a look at Method specifically today, is a solution that allows you to do this all in one place. Okay, as I mentioned, it integrates with QuickBooks, so we're going to be taking a look at the integration today between Method CRM and QuickBooks Desktop. We do work with online as well. And we're going to be going through an introduction, taking a look at the Method CRM features, going through, various areas of it. And then we're going to be introducing this concept called customization. So even in Method, we realize that just like QuickBooks, it does a great job at certain things, but users are always going to want more. They're going to want something a little bit more tailored in some cases, and we will definitely provide those abilities, and we'll give you guys a sneak peek as to what's possible to open your mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the presentation over to myself here, and if Jamal can do that, we can all take a look at the screen. Okay, and what you're seeing here today is my Method CRM account. Okay, this is something that I've populated with some sample information, and we're going to go through and we're going to walk through some various examples. So it does look and feel a little bit different than QuickBooks. Okay, the navigation's a little bit different, especially for those QuickBooks desktop users. In desktop, you were probably used to, and I hope that everyone can see my QuickBooks desktop file here, but in QuickBooks Desktop, you're probably used to drilling down with these menus across the top. Okay, so if you want to go and access something about customers, you go to the customers link and then you drill down further. So in Method, the way that you navigate is you navigate across these tabs here across the top. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at actually is our Leads tab. Now, a good CRM should be able to accommodate leads. And what do we really mean by leads? Leads are your potential customers. So people that are not quite customers, and it could be, depending on how you have your QuickBooks file set up, they could be the names of the individuals, or they can be, the company names. We work with and sync with the way that your QuickBooks File currently handles your customer list. Because let's face it, these are your potential customers. So the idea here is your leads will become customers. A good CRM has the ability to track and manage your group of leads. Now, these leads, as I mentioned, they are potential customers, so that means that they will not be found in QuickBooks. That's a very important feature of Method CRM, and that's why we actually distinguish the tabs leads versus customers. Because these leads do not have an accounting purpose to be in QuickBooks. And what does that mean for QuickBooks users? It means a very nice, clean QuickBooks file. You manage your leads in Method. They are held on the Method side. And when there's an accounting reason for these people or these companies, these leads to go to QuickBooks, they will be transferred over to QuickBooks and it'll sync in real time. So one of the examples that I like to give, I mentioned managing leads. There's different ways to accommodate for leads and getting them into your system in the first place. The first one is a direct entry method. So you have a business card, you have an email signature, you're talking to somebody over the phone, and you simply type in and you capture that information as you're speaking to them. So name, first name, as much information as you possibly can. One of the nice features about leads and some of the highlights here is we also give you a few additional features to track. So some options down here at the bottom, although they may seem elementary, they're actually quite important. You have a lead status here which gives you the option to mark this lead as open, qualified, and unqualified. And this becomes particularly important because this isn't the only way to get these leads into the system. We have a free list of integration tools which allows you to also use, for example, an import tool. So a lot of companies will purchase a list of leads from marketing firms. Once a quarter, once a month, they'll be sent a list of leads in an Excel, or they'll export it out of another solution, or they'll be sent this information in an email somehow. So if you have a list of 10, 50, 500 leads, you may want to import it into your account as opposed to manually typing them in each one at a time. And that's when this feature becomes important, because when you're putting in your leads, until you actually speak to them, you don't know if they're qualified, or you don't really say that they're unqualified yet because you haven't determined that until someone's actually made some contact with them. And we'll talk about that later on. You also have another area here for hot, cold, and warm. Again, sounds elementary but very important, because when you go back to your leads list, this is where you can start to prioritize, right? Having a hot lead, someone who says, I'm ready to sign the contract, I'm ready to buy your product or service, but I just need this one question answered, would be considered a hot lead, as opposed to someone who calls in and says, well, I'm looking to get some information. So it would definitely help you prioritize. And a couple of the other features that we have here, and we'll talk about these a little bit later on, lead source, if you want to track where these people are coming from, and if you want to relate them to any campaigns. And we'll talk about campaigns a little bit later on. Okay, so we mentioned the fact that we have these leads. We mentioned that they are not going to be found in QuickBooks because they're held on the method side, waiting to become customers. Okay, but how do they become customers? So we can pick on one of our leads here, and we're just going to go ahead and pick on Paul. And we're going to go into his profile. One way to have Paul become a customer when he's ready to do so is to just manually convert him to a customer. Now what this will do is it will take Paul and all of his contacts, and we'll talk about contacts in a minute, and just move them over to the Customers tab, and that will in turn send them to QuickBooks, all in real time. And we'll show an example of that syncing between Method and QuickBooks in a minute. Okay, but we're not going to do that just yet. So there's another way that Method can handle the conversion. So a commonly asked question is, if I have a list of leads, do I have to re-enter them as customers every time? Absolutely not. We saw that you can just convert them. What about transactions? So here we have an estimate. And we can go ahead and we can open up this drop down and we can start typing in Paul, and we can actually determine, if you look at the last column here, it actually indicates that he's a customer lead. And what that does on the transaction level is it will actually put a little flag here on the method side to say, you're dealing with a lead, someone who's only in method. He may want an estimate for something, so why don't we keep the estimate on the method side as well? Because all of our QuickBooks users, we all know that you can't have a transaction, something like an estimate, an invoice, in QuickBooks without having the customer there. And this is where we come into play now with the integration with QuickBooks, because if we say, no, that's okay, we actually want to send this estimate over to QuickBooks, we can uncheck that feature, and by hitting save on this estimate, we are first converting automatically Paul to a customer, sending Paul to QuickBooks, and then sending this estimate to QuickBooks along with him. So very easy, very effective way of managing your leads, and then hopefully the ultimate goal is the majority of your leads will become customers. This brings us to the Customers tab. Okay, here we have a list of customers. Again, looks very, very similar to what we saw with the leads list. And we're going to pick on Amy Smith. So we're going to go ahead and open up this profile here in Method. And keep in mind, everything that I'm doing here, I am running it off one computer, but the QuickBooks file can be at your office, at your home location, on a PC, on a laptop. It doesn't matter where the QuickBooks file is. All I need to access Method is an internet connection and a browser. And I'm able to go into the profile of one of my customers, maybe while I'm on vacation, take a look at some of her information. Now, to show everyone an example of the sync, we can all see here, hopefully, that the last 4 digits of Amy's phone number in my Method account are 0001. So I'm going to just flip over to the QuickBooks side. And hopefully everyone can still see my QuickBooks file, and they can still see that the information mirrors, especially the last 4 digits of the phone number, 0001. So what I'm going to do is go back to Method, and I'm going to make a simple little change. Okay, so that it will actually update this in real time. So let's do that now. Instead of 0001, we're going to change it to 0505, and we're going to scroll down in Method. And remember, I'm doing this from anywhere in the world, just a simple internet connection and a browser. We can see that the changes have happened in Method. If we go to QuickBooks, we can see that the changes have already happened. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the changes happen in real time. And it also tells us here that we can actually change it back. So anyone who's in the office that's using QuickBooks can make a change. We can go back to Method. We can scroll down and we can actually just refresh this list slightly. And we can see that the change also happened in real time in a matter of seconds. So the change happens both ways between Method and QuickBooks, QuickBooks to Method. It happens real time, so none of this batch syncing, having to remember to click a little sync button throughout the day. And it works for the QuickBooks entities such as customers, vendors, employees, and the majority of their transactions. So we can see here under the Customers tab, and even for leads, I mean, we're talking about estimates, we're talking about invoices, sales orders, right? And then there's areas, of course, for vendors and their transactions, employees and their time tracking as well. And it also works for adding, modifying, and deleting. So what does that mean? Well, we saw an example where we can actually change a phone number. But if you were to create a new invoice halfway across the world in Method, that invoice would get created in QuickBooks in real time. If you were to create an estimate in QuickBooks, it would be available to your Method users in real time. So what else makes Method special? I mean, right now we've talked a little bit about the lead, we've talked about customers, but now we're going to lead into the CRM. And to do that, we also need to mention contacts. Okay? Because we can see here, let's pick on Amy Smith again. Let's go to her profile, and let's go down to the contacts area. Method CRM is a contact-based solution. And what does that mean for all of you QuickBooks users? You're going to appreciate this. Here we can see Amy is the main contact, the one that was syncing with QuickBooks. We can see here Doug Smith. He is the alternate contact because QuickBooks Desktop has the contact and an alternate contact. That also syncs with QuickBooks. But what about this third one, Kelly Armstrong? What about a fourth contact? What about a fifth and a sixth and a seventh and so on and so forth? So you can have the one contact that will be the syncing contact, in other words, the QuickBooks entity, the customer, the vendor, but you can also have an unlimited amount of other contacts underneath them that will remain on the method side only, because this is where the CRM lives. Okay? And you can see that we can add some additional information for each of them, some social media information, and etc. And this is extremely important because we all know that when we're dealing with our customers, we're not just dealing with Amy Smith. Sometimes you're dealing with Bob, sometimes you're dealing with Fred, sometimes you're dealing with April. And you should be able to track. I had a phone call with April. The next day I met with Bob, and not everything saying Amy, Amy, Amy. So that is another important feature of a good customer relationship management tool. Okay, so now we can take a look at some of the other features here, but we're going to move on slightly and go into the CRM area. Okay, and we'll come back and forth between some of these features as the presentation proceeds. The next area that I want to talk about, and this is where CRM is going to kick into high gear. This is your Activities tab. Okay, and you're going to notice as we click these tabs, you're going to notice they each serve a very specific purpose. You know, if you're in the Activities tab, you're dealing with activities. And what does activities really mean? Well, activities are your interactions between your customers, your vendors, your leads, and their contacts. Okay? So if you're having a phone call, if you're sending an email, if you received an email, if you're having a meeting, those are the kinds of things that you'll want to track. And you'll want to track when it happened, who was there, how long it was perhaps, and any notes as a result of that phone call, right? And in QuickBooks right now, I mean, there's small areas of this, but there's nothing that really allows you to have it all in one centralized location for everybody to see, right? And there's no features in there that allow you to do the kinds of things that I'm about to show you, again, which could be customized, but you can use them right off the shelf today. The first screen that you see here is an activities list screen. This is meant to be in your face as the user who is logged in. So I'm currently logged in as Valbon. That's my username when I log into this method account. And when I log in, it actually picks up the fact that I am logged in, and it gives me a quick little snapshot of my activities that are due on or before today's date. So in other words, it's telling me, hey Val, you need to do these, and in this case, 3 things before you leave the office today. Why? Because they were actually due in the past, or they're due today. And you can tell by the dates that, that's pretty accurate. And I can go ahead and click on these little go-to links, and it'll bring me right to a particular, lead, customer, and tell me what it is I have to do. And we can also see from this grid here. Now, how does this get populated? Well, for that, we're going to go into the new activity list. And if we're here, this is where we start to track, start to enter in some of those activities. And we're going to go through a very basic example. Okay? Something that's very simple, but it involves a few steps to kind of highlight some of the features. We mentioned Amy Smith, our customer. We can see here that she has an overdue balance, and it's the same overdue balance that would be coming from QuickBooks. Approximately $1,300. So my activity, my interaction with Amy is going to be very simple. I want to phone Amy. I want to have a conversation, making sure she's aware that she owes us some money. I want to track the notes of that phone call. I want to send her an email. And of course, I want to put in some kind of a reminder in case she doesn't pay by the time that we agreed on for something else to happen, perhaps for me to contact her again. So on the new activity screen, and this is just one area in Method where you can initiate this, we have this little field here called Assign To. That's just my name. That's who's completing this activity. And then we have activity type. Okay, this is a list that you will see by default. You can ignore the ones that say demo for now. Okay, and we are going to have a phone call, an outgoing phone call with Amy. Gives you the date and time, and we can go here and we can start selecting from a list who it is that we're going to speak to on the phone. Now, we all know that I mentioned Amy, so I mean I can, alphabetically, she's right there at the top. I can start typing in Amy, and it will find her. But one thing that I want to point out, and this is something that differentiates us a little bit from QuickBooks, at least from what I've seen. These drop-downs in Method, notice how they're actually displaying not just the name, but the company name. And they're actually telling you right off the bat, is this an employee, a customer, customer lead, or vendor? Okay? And what if you can't remember Amy's name? You know what company you want to call, but you just can't remember her name. Well, start typing in the company name instead of the actual name of the customer. So the drop-downs actually search across all 3 columns, which is something that's very powerful. And by starting to type in the name of the company, I actually found all the contacts at that company. And let's go ahead and select Amy. We can see here right off the bat, as soon as you make a selection, on the left-hand side it populates the QuickBooks information for that customer, so who the QuickBooks entity is. On the right-hand side near the top here, it'll actually, still on the left-hand side, but near the top, it will give you the contact you're about to speak to. So in this case, it's Amy and Amy, but it could have been Amy and Doug. Also on the left-hand side gives you a quick snapshot of what's happened recently. Okay, so we can very quickly see we've actually had some interaction with her today, earlier, it looks like. And then you can also see any sales opportunities and any open cases, which we'll talk about later on. So let's go ahead and follow along with the example. Called Amy to inform her about the overdue balance. She must pay before end of next week. Okay, so you'd probably put some more detailed notes there, but some kind of a note. Then we can scroll down and we can take a look at what else there is available to us. I don't just want to put the notes down here, because if that's all I do and I hit complete save and new, well, that's it. I've tracked the phone call. But what if she doesn't pay in the time that we've agreed? So this is where follow-ups become extremely important. We can actually schedule a follow-up to remind us that if she doesn't pay, I'm going to send her a quick email next Wednesday. So we did give her until the end of the week, which is the Friday. But if I see that she hasn't paid by Wednesday, I might want to remind myself to send her another email just as a gentle reminder saying, Amy, you only have a couple more days. Okay? And the nice thing about this is that this follow-up will then appear in my activity list the day that it is due. So when I log into Method on that day, I will see it and I will know that I have to email Amy on that day. Pretty powerful. What else can we do here? We can actually schedule this follow-up for another user. So we have other Method users here, and we can contact and schedule it for Mark. Notice how when we selected another name, it automatically will send that user an email right now as a heads up to say, somebody's assigned you some work. So Val just had a conversation with Amy. Here's the notes of what they spoke about. And by the way, he's asking that you email her next Wednesday if she hasn't paid. And the nice thing about this is when Mark logs in, this will appear in his list of activities on that date. So he will not forget. Also making sure that users don't forget, as you start to add your users into Method, there are options in there for them to receive email notifications approximately 15 minutes before an appointment is due. So as you start to add your users, we can go here to Mark, and we can actually enable those options. Does he want email notifications? Does he want text message notifications? And that's something you can do on a user-by-user basis. The next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to send an email. So because we're sending this email, and we're probably sending this kind of an email often, we actually have an email template. and you can create your own email templates. And mine is just called Overdue Balance, and it simply knows what to do. It detects who we're speaking to, so in other words, who this activity is for. It pulls the QuickBooks balance, and it puts in my signature. Now, if I was to click Complete, Save, and New, it will actually do 4 things. It will log the phone call, it will send an email to Amy, it will schedule a follow-up for Mark, and it will actually email Mark right now to basically say, by the way, we've scheduled you some work, just a courtesy. And then we and any other user, any other employee, can go into Amy's profile and take a look at her complete history. And here we have the history of Amy Smith. It tells you that I just spoke to her. And if we change this filter to say shared activities, we can actually see other users' activities and in the future dates. So very, very powerful features here. And if we go into Amy's inbox, which I just happen to have here as a sample, Amy should have received an email, and she'll receive that email in a couple of minutes or so, letting her know that she owes that balance. So very, very powerful. Now, these activities, it doesn't just end there. You can do a couple of other features here. You can actually schedule recurring activities. So for those users that like to be reminded automatically, basically set up an activity once, something that repeats every month, something that repeats weekly, monthly, maybe on the second Friday of every month. You can set those things up, and you can specify how long it is going to occur for. So I need to contact this customer on the first Monday of every month for the next year. Well, you can do the first Monday of every month, and you can actually specify when it starts and when it ends, and is it up for renewal. And that becomes important because you can actually specify the activity type as well, right? And we talk about these activity types, and I'm going to move on from these activities in a minute or two, but you're not stuck with that list. You can actually just click those 3 dots and create your own activity type. What does this mean? This means you now have the flexibility to rename some of these, create new ones, and here you'll see one that's called Demo. Okay. In my particular company, in this example, we are an alarm company. We go out and we install home installation, alarms, monitor them, and do some repairs. Okay. And while we're installing these, the installation crew goes out, and then in the next couple of days, we actually go out and we do an initial consultation. Okay. That's something that my company does. And the nice thing about this is I can track if that was completed for each customer, when it was completed, who it was completed by. In addition to that, when we schedule this initial consultation, we can do some automated workflow. And it will automatically know when we create a consultation to automatically have a courtesy phone call 14 days later. So again, these are the kinds of things that you no longer have to remember, right? You schedule the initial consultation, you want to follow up with them 2 weeks later and say, by the way, it's been a couple weeks, how are things going? You don't have to remember to do that because this will do it for you automatically. Okay, very, very powerful. We also have an activity calendar. Okay, so you can see things on a calendar for visual users, and it just depends on what you want to be displayed on the calendar. Okay, so we're not going to display all of our emails on a calendar because the calendar would become useless. I mean, we all get hundreds of emails a day. So we can actually just choose which activities will appear on a calendar. And then the rest of them, we can just see from the activity list. Okay, very, very powerful. Now, we focus a lot about activities because that's the core of the CRM. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through and talk about opportunities. These are your sales opportunities. Okay, this is where you start to track your sales and what stages they are and who's doing what and how long things are taking to close. Okay, so you might want to take that into consideration. We can see here home installations, we can see who's responsible for it, and more importantly, the last and the next activity date tells you right away when was the last time that somebody contacted this company, when was the next time that somebody's scheduled to contact this company. Okay, So that's something that's very easy to tell. And if we just go into one of these opportunities, we can see the details. We can see here it's a home installation. This is who it's for. Right now we're sitting at the needs analysis stage. Again, this list is customizable as well. Okay, and we can track all the activities, all the phone calls, the meetings, the other activity types that you will have related to trying to close this deal. And this becomes particularly important because this is what also populates these charts. Okay, in terms of potential business coming in, what do you have sitting at what stage, what's your win to close ratio, and users, and also what's coming up in the next couple months, few months, depending on the amount of the opportunity and the probability that it will close or not. I'll go through a very, very basic example of creating a new opportunity. I won't go through the entire thing, but just a few things that I want to highlight. I really like this screen because it's so easy to use. Okay? If we wanted to create a new opportunity for a home installation, and remember, I'm an alarm company, we're going to assume that we're going to complete the deal by the end of the month. Right now we're just prospecting, and it's going to be worth $7,000, just for now. Here's the part that I like. Is it for an existing contact or lead or customer? So in other words, does this person exist in your system? If they do not, meaning somebody that just phoned me, in any other solution I would probably have to go over to the leads area, go over to the new lead, capture their information, go over to the activities area, track the notes on that phone call, go over to opportunities, and then create a new opportunity. Not the case in Method. Method makes it extremely easy. If they don't exist, add them right from this screen. If you want to hear where they came in from, maybe they heard about you from a newspaper ad, maybe they're responding to an email that was sent out, part of an email campaign, and we'll talk about campaigns in a second. You can track that. Then start to track the notes of the phone call, and then schedule a follow-up. Notice how the more you want to do, optional, just keep checking those boxes and it gives you those options. And if you hit save here, you have successfully created an opportunity, you have successfully inserted a new lead into your system, you track the phone call and schedule the follow-up for yourself or somebody else. Very simple to use. These campaigns, these are your marketing initiatives. So this is where you can start to track, if you're going and running a newspaper ad, telemarketing, cold calling, email campaigns. If you go to a trade show or a conference, you want to be able to track how successful that was. And let's take a look at one here for a newspaper ad. And it doesn't have to be a traditional marketing. Like I mentioned, cold calling, email campaigns. You have a flyer that you sent out in the mail locally. Okay, this will tell you how many leads came in as a result of it. How many were converted to customers? Yes, when you convert them from a lead to a customer, we actually track it. How many sales opportunities did you get? How many were lost versus won? And the monetary value. So it makes it very easy to answer questions like, do we want to go to that conference again next year? It costs us X amount of dollars, but we're getting a lot of money out of it. Or no, we don't, because it has not been very successful for us. Cases, we're going to fly through the rest. Cases is very similar to opportunities, except here you're really trying to track and answer the service side of the business. Okay? I have a question, a billing inquiry as a customer. Okay? You want to make sure that those kinds of things are resolved. And here's a little case dialogue between a customer and a staff member. Okay? And you are able to actually track those things. Other people like to refer to cases as tickets. That's acceptable as well. And you can see the case list. You can see if things are open, closed, what's active. And this gives you a really high-level understanding of, what you have going on the service side. Solutions. This is a nice little feature too, because this allows you to not only keep it as an internal knowledge base, but you can make it publicly available. So what do I mean by that? If you have a certain process that your business takes to do something, go ahead and track it as an internal solution. It sure as heck beats sending out a Word document to your staff saying, follow these steps to do something. And then 6 months later, those steps change. Here's the revised document. No, 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 no. Put it in as a solution, and if the steps change the solution, your staff will still be going to the same place. Okay? Very, very simple. And if you make them publicly available, they will actually be made available via a portal. So we have these features in Method called portals. Okay? This is a portal that I have one open here. Imagine your customers being able to log in. Okay? They receive an email that says, we've just created an invoice for you. Why don't you click this link to log into the portal and view it and print it, and more importantly, pay us. So it actually helps you get paid faster too. Your company can look big time professional even if you're a small company of 1 or 2 people. It allows your customers to get that extra edge where they can go in off hours, manage their own information, update their own information, take a look at their transactions, all coming from your Method and QuickBooks account. Okay? Taking a look at solutions that you've made public, so no more phone calls and emails asking for stuff when they can just search for it on their own. And if they can't find it, let them ask a question, but let them pose that question through the portal, which will automatically get fed as a case. And here's that same question. So those are the kinds of things that you should be opening up to. We also have an area for document management. So you can upload documents, PowerPoints, PDFs, those kinds of things as well. Now, that was a very quick, high-level overview of Method CRM. I mentioned I'm going to introduce this concept of customization. So we're going to go ahead and just introduce this concept. We all know that customers will want to track custom fields. That's a common question we get asked. No problem. You can actually go, and these are tools that are available to you, but you can actually go into your own account. For example, go into the customer table, and some customers you want to know, here's a silly example, what kind of car do they drive? Well, just put in a field name called car, select the field type, and go ahead and add it. And you can see that we've already have an example of that. I've already kind of populated it. Okay? And what that allows us to do is it actually allows us to now go ahead and track that custom information. And it doesn't have to be a car, that's just an example. Okay? Any kind of custom information you have, which allows us then to go over to the screens area. Okay? And this is our list of screens in Method. Notice how some of them are bold and some of them are not. The ones that are not bold are designed by us. You can't tamper with them, but you can certainly make copies of it. So let's go to our recently modified screens, and let's go over to a sample of a customer screen. I'm just going to show a sample here where I have gone in and I have added a field to track what kind of car the customer drives. Now, how did I do this? You might think, you need to be a programmer or a computer whiz. Not necessarily. Okay? What you could do is you can just click that screen, that's your screen, and drag and drop these fields on. So once you've added it to the table, it will appear here on the left, and you can just literally drag it onto the screen. Okay? Now, in addition to that, there's these things in Method that are called actions. It's one thing to track information, but it's another thing to be able to say, let's put some unique business logic in there. So notice how everything here has a little edit, 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 edit. You can pretty much edit anything. And we're going to go ahead and do that. You can do the cosmetics, of course, but if you follow these wizards, again, there's no programming involved. We can actually use a list of actions that allow you to say, this is what I want this button to do. This is what I want to happen if the customer selects a Volkswagen from that list of cars. And you can see here, I've already pre-populated that example, but let's go through it together very quickly. If we're going to use a little condition here that says, I want to look at just the people that select Volkswagen. So we're looking at the screen and we're looking at the value for car. if it equals VW, we can actually tell method through our list of actions to send an email, to show a message, to do something like load a web page. And let's take them to vw.com. Okay, and then we add another action to end to signify that we're finished. And we can actually click finish, and we can go and we can test that page. Why? Because we've now told it in plain English, if the user selects this value, do something. And here we have Ford, it doesn't do anything. If they select Honda, it doesn't do anything. And guess what? If they select VW, it takes them to a website. Okay? And those are the kinds of things that you should be looking to do. Okay? One last example that I like to leave everyone with is these tabs across the top, of course, are not the only tabs that you have access to. You can create your own tabs. You can see here we have plenty, and we even have some for vendors. But they belong to different groups, so you can start to specify. If you have a sales team, they see certain information. If you have a service team, they see certain information. And those groups are right here. Now you will not see the ones that say demo. Those are for demoing purposes. But for example, if we go to the QuickBooks group of tabs, you can certainly see that things start to change. Now we have our vendors area. Now we have our QuickBooks items that also sync with QuickBooks. So one last example of customization, and then I'll flip it back over to Jamel because we're approaching the 1 hour mark, is with some imagination, you can create your own custom business logic. Okay? Imagine for a moment that we own a salon. And my rule is, whether you're using QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop, my rule is I want to have an invoice for every person who cuts their hair. So I go into Method, and instead of having QuickBooks on the front register so that everyone can see everything, my entire company file is exposed, we replace that with a web browser and a Method account that allows the users to see, the people that are cutting hair, my staff, to see just this screen. From here, they select the client that they just cut their hair for, in this case Amy Smith, and then they select, is it a female, a child, or a male? Amy is a female. We click the picture. We get prompted to say, we've just created the invoice for you. By the way, Amy, would you like an email receipt? Amy says yes. She's standing in front of us. Her iPhone has just buzzed with a little email saying, we've just created an invoice for you. Here's your little receipt. And this invoice, with one click of a button, has now been sent to QuickBooks in the back office. And we can see it's for Amy. We can see the information here. It's for a woman's haircut. And it has already gone over to QuickBooks. And how were these screens created and designed? Through some imagination, through a little bit of customization. So that's the little buzzword that we're talking about here. And this is how we created that screen. It took about 8 minutes to create this screen from scratch. And these are the kinds of things that you can do, or more importantly, if you don't want to do them, but you know what it is you want to achieve, contact our solution provider team like Jamel. He's more than capable, and he's actually done some great work with Method in the past, where he can literally customize this to say, we have an image of a female, and we're literally telling it, translating your English into Method actions, what it should do. If they don't select a client on the screen, so if the client on the screen is empty, they should not be creating an invoice. Okay? So in other words, if the user doesn't select a client and they try to hit that picture, that is being prompted, they're being warned because you through English have told them, I want to give them a warning. And through a Method action, it actually says if this is not met, we need to stop. So those are the kinds of things we should be looking at doing, and I'm very, very excited about the potential of Method for not only you as QuickBooks users, but your customers as well. And Jamal, I mean, if you'd like, we can flip the presentation back to you, or we can see if there's any questions maybe from our audience.
Yes, Adrian, can you tell us if there's any questions, please?
Yes, we have a couple questions. First question is, can I import a list of leads from another application?
Great question, and if that was asked by one of the users here, that's a very, very good question. I kind of alluded to it at the beginning of the presentation, but definitely we do have some free integration tools. So under the Customize tab, again, we have some integration tools, and you can go to the Import-Export feature and quite literally say, I have an Excel that I would like to import, choose the table you want to import it, and you can see customer leads is one of them, and you can go ahead and import it right from there. Okay.
And then it looks like we have another question, Val. Does Method work with QuickBooks Online?
Yes, absolutely. So Method CRM will work with QuickBooks Desktop, which is kind of what we demonstrated here today, but it absolutely works with QuickBooks Online as well. So depending on your edition, you just need to be aware of that before you sign up for the account.
And we have one more question. How does Method's CRM compare to the new lead feature in QuickBooks 2012?
Okay, that's a great question. QuickBooks is starting to realize, and Intuit is starting to realize that this whole concept of customer relationship management is important. So they are slowly starting to add in some of these features into QuickBooks. But here's the advantage of Method. Method does sync with QuickBooks. Okay, so by entering the leads here on the Method side, okay, even if you do have the ability to enter some of the lead information on the QuickBooks side, we can see here that you can not only enter in the leads, but it gives you that complete management. It gives you the reminders in the activity list. It gives you email notifications. It gives you text message notifications of appointments. So you're really getting a one solution that will manage every aspect of your leads, not just being able to enter the information in. Because if that was the case, we would just be talking about this lead tab and just be talking about this new lead screen. But the fact that Method CRM then takes that information to the next step, allows you to complete those interactions, allows you to customize using lead information. These are still some of the things that are unmatched by any other solution right now. So you definitely have a lot of advantages working with Method, and it's a solution that you will not outgrow anytime in the near future. Because if your needs change, simply change the way that your solution works. Okay.
And I do not see any more questions. You guys did a great presentation. Jamal, did you have any last words?
Other than thank you, and I can put up my contact information if anybody has any questions that they want to ask me offline.
Okay, I'm going ahead and showing your screen.
Thank you. Here's my contact information. And also, for all of you that have attended, we have a special offer going on, and that's going to be a free 30-day trial of the QuickBooks CRM along with a 1-hour consultation. And to sign up for this promotion, you can go to my website, www.jamelsmith.com, and then QuickBooks CRM. I will email this link also out to all of the attendees today.
Okay, great. It's a great little offer there. Jamal, it was my pleasure to present Method CRM. Thank you for having me and inviting me to this group. I wish everyone all the best, and then hopefully you get the solution that you're looking for, whether it's Method or not. And I encourage everyone here to contact Jamal because he is an excellent an account manager for Method.